All right. Welcome to Reflect, Recalibrate. We are your lovely lady artivist hosts, Janet E. Dandridge and Danny Snyder. This is the final part three of our Fabric and Crowns collection, when we invite some of our lovely RFC comrades to join our discussion. Today, we are reflecting with Mugisha Ali Allan, yoga teacher and Teaching Artists Institute lead curator, and Kristina Koutsoudas, choreographer, performer, scholar, author, and storyteller. All right, so before we get into the conversation, here's the quick news bite of the day. Today's quick news bite. Yes.
Quick, right?
Quick news bite. And we can have some quick responses if we want. So, with these quick news bites, they are regarding arts. This is what we're focused on. Unless there is something else that we think we need to say specifically on that day. However, usually they're focused on arts. That doesn't mean everything else that is a news bite is not important. It's just that we are an artivism podcast, right? So we're focusing on the arts, all right? So we're getting our quick news bite from the Pittsburgh Arts Council today. So in national news, in the US of A, Trump announced last week that he was firing Kim Saget, longtime director of the Smithsonian's National Portrait Gallery, blah, 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 blah. My mouth is not moving correctly.
That's why we
And
do this,
he
is to warm
says,
up.
right? She is a highly partisan person and a strong supporter of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is totally inappropriate for her position. This is what Trump says. And he posted that on Trump Social, on Truth Social. Trump Social. That's what it is, right? I'm just like all over the place right now, right?
That was
And
the
then
truth,
earlier,
though.
it's Trump Social. And then earlier this week, a White House official provided the Washington Post with a further list of reasonings for Trump's call for Saget's dismissal, including times when the director spoke critically of the president, such as exhibiting his portrait with a caption referring to his two impeachments. However, multiple outlets report today that Saget is still coming to work, despite Trump's threats to have her fired. According to Art News, some are questioning his authority to do so, as he doesn't sit on the board of the Smithsonian. And this is news as of June 5th. Okay. So, Danny, any quick response to that?
Love, they're still showing up. That's activism right there. You still just
Right?
keep showing up. Yeah.
Right? Exactly. Exactly. So please keep showing up. And this is totally aligned with continue to take action, take just and peaceful action against tyranny. All right, y'all, stay informed and get involved. Okay. So now we're going to get into our conversation. Fabric and Crowns collection with our guests, Kristina and Mugisha. All right. So the opening question that we're going to pose to our guests and our audience, which I'll put in the chat in a moment. How have you seen braiding, textiles, and or yoga used in activism? How have you seen braiding, textiles, or yoga used in activism?
And as people think, I'll just say that this was a question we also posed in the first episode of this collection, which if you haven't seen the first and second episode of this collection, strongly recommend going back and checking that out, especially our interview with Nawili G, who is so wise and has so many deep stories. I felt very emotional in that episode. But yeah, this was a question we posed at the beginning. So we're reflecting back on this question. I've definitely been thinking a lot more about more examples. I was so focused on textiles and quilting in our very first episode, and in some of the conversations I've had with Kristina leading up to this episode, I've been broadening textiles in my mind. Yeah.
Um, so again, my name's Mugisha Ali Allan. I am a healing artist and a multidisciplinary holistic practitioner. I teach yoga. I do the liberation body work that includes Thai yoga massage and other healing methodologies like moxibustion. And I really believe that yoga itself has been used in many ways of activism. For example, in my country, people have been seeing yoga like a trend or a fad. So it's like practice for rich people, expats, and they never took it really important. But looking at the essence of wellness education, using yoga as a tool of positive transformation, it's really getting to be a change. So personally, I started teaching yoga in 2018, and my reasons for teaching is like my heart was failing, and looking at the signs before my heart failed, or started failing, was like I didn't even know what the body was communicating. So the body mind connection was not the interpretation, communication was there, but the interpretation was lost in the process. That means many people are going through life and they don't know whatever is happening in their life. And let's look at the fact of healthcare, because pharmaceutical companies, all they care about is when you get sick and they sell their drugs, you know. And when we look at holistic ways of healing, like yoga, moxibustion, Thai yoga massage, and all these other things that come through, it look like people are getting to have yoga as um, a reliable, how can I say, insurance, health insurance, because at least if somebody knows how the body reacts and how to counteract on it, and focusing on things like nutrition, body alignment, awareness, mindfulness. This is what I teach. This is what I give out, and I find that me playing my part as an activist through the yoga practice has made a whole change, even in the way that I share my practice to many people. Well, I do not know whether I've answered the question the way you intended to get the answer, but yeah, that's how I've seen yoga being used by activists and as a way of activism by myself and other yoga teachers, that we have the same mind.
I think it's a great answer. And I don't think there's no right or wrong answer to that. Just ways we've seen it. And again, when I think activism, I think I'm taking an action towards transformation, whether it's self-transformation, social transformation. So that you just touched a lot on that.
Yeah, that body mind connection. It reminds me a lot of what Nawili was saying without saying that language that you use, Mujisha, educating us on the language, right? That's used within yoga practices, that body mind connection, right? Or spiritual practices as well. The way in which we treat ourselves, that self care that Danny, you use that language that we need is important in being radical, like radical empathy, radical love, all of these things and ways in which we can take these practices that are that are medicine for our body, like you were saying, Mujisha, this holistic healing, all of the ways in which we can utilize these different ways or practices to be able to take care of ourselves and others.
If
Kristina, did you have any thoughts?
Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute. I was gonna say though, real quick, I was gonna say I love this idea of because I always think of growing your own food as an act of resistance because that's what I've been doing a lot lately is urban community gardening. But now I'm like, yoga and taking care of your body is totally an act of resistance too. Sorry, go ahead, Christina.
No, That's exactly it. I mean, I was going to say, Mugisha, speaking my language, it's the same practice, especially with dance and in today's society, that dance of all the arts is probably the most difficult to sustain. And at one time, because it's as a practice of indigenous art, it grows from the land. It grows with a people and a culture having a daily relationship with a specific body of land. And over time, this relationship is cultivated and it pulls from you a certain rhythm, a certain tone. The and those rhythms are then woven into the music. And the language is the music, right? And it rises from the land, as it were, and the materials used in the textiles are grown on that land. They're dyed in that land. They're woven into the land. And so people are actually wearing the land and living the land and singing the land and moving with the land when they do this dance. This is my, and these people, fiercely declare, this is my dance. This is who, this is I am this. And it's a rhythm. And often in many parts of the world, in the Middle East, for example, they have the rhythm, the dance, and the people are one. They're one name. And so we've kind of lost that. So I don't know if this is answering, but that is, and to reclaim, and part of that is in terms of textiles, older cultures traditionally, like, well, not older, I shouldn't say that, but just indigenous culture, when they were working with a body of land, whether they're actually settled or whether they have that semi-nomadic or they're nomadic, all of them, the there was usually a dress for every day, and then there was a ceremonial dress, and that's it. We have one, we use our, and then that ceremonial dress can often get passed down through generations and altered, but it has incredible, those textiles are amazing, um, the ceremonial ones, and they're imbued with such meaning, and the colors, the symbols, they tell you whose family, where they're from, are they married, are they not married, their profession. All of this can be embellished, plus with an individual unique flair, right? Like, you can have influences woven in from other cultures softly, but yet at the core, there's this language that's shared by this community, so that when people see that dress from afar, they're like, oh, that's so and so from so and so. And I know, oh, she's not married, maybe. So it's got all this richness. And then there's dress for the everyday, so that, right, then there's this is what we wear, and it's almost as if that textile can when it's ceremonial, it can open up that window into another dimension, right? And it becomes this engagement with the other worlds that we live in. And then we have this daily dress, which, okay, I don't mind getting dirty, or whatever happens with the kids. But that too has significance, right? It's still woven from the land. It's still, if it's light colored to reflect the sun, if it's a hot climate. And anyway, I don't know if I'm sharing with you anything, but it's very hard to sustain that, right? In modern day culture, we're taught wear finery every day. We have a specific code. We have buy clothes that are ready made. Buy fabrics now are less and less grown from the land, and they're manufactured and synthetic, and actually that has a detrimental effect on our bodies too, right? They retain smell, they're hotter, they're more difficult to clean naturally. And so, they're becoming the natural fibers are becoming more expensive, while the synthetic ones are the ones that are tossed away often. And we see in how do we recycle those, so I mean, that's a whole, I'm just trying to like connect it to activism. To return to that traditional way of life might be actually more sustainable in many ways, because then we don't have this throwaway. We have our one, and honestly, it's so much work, right, to take care of these finery. Like, I mean, imagine having, like, this is what I've discovered in dancing. It's like, oh, how can I possibly reproduce for people the finery of all these different indigenous people when they only really have one dress every time. Like, how is it that I'm supposed to retain a costume closet of like 30 dresses of each village, right? Even if it's my own, because they're so ornate and so expensive to put together. They're incredible. So yeah.
Kristina, you mentioned finery. You said finery, Finery. Is that what you said?
Hmm.
Can you explain that for our
So
audience, please?
sure, I'm my mistake. So it means a dress that's highly adorned. It's incredibly rich in its design, in the quality of the fabric. It's often highly embroidered, or it has sequins and mirrors and um, sequins today, but mirrors woven in, jewels, semi-precious stones. It is um, it has objects perhaps fashioned um, of incredibly of meaningful symbolism. So maybe specific crosses, or the eight-pointed wheel of life, or the sheaves of wheat, or things that are shaped out of silver or semi or brass or semi-precious that are then sewn into the garment, so that people there are scarves of multicolors and fabrics that are then dyed in all these hues depending on the, the the specific people that they belong to, and they have meaning, right? Like the Tuareg people would dye everything indigo, or the men would wear these indigo beautiful shawls, or
Mhm.
blue for the women. The base of the garment would be the sky blue for protection and for um, it's an aesthetic of beauty. Um,
Oh,
so
wow.
these things are imbued in the fabrics, and then also all of their wealth sometimes, because that's what the women could own, gets invested into the jewelry. So the dowry money would go, the coins, the silverware, like the amulets, uh, breastplates and belts and headgear that to hold down and weight down the scarves to keep them, or the fabric that's wound around the body. They have special jewelry that will keep it from blowing away in the wind, right? Either pins or long, like pendants slash necklaces that they're kind of counterweights that kind of hold the fabric down. So, and
Wow.
belts
Okay.
and anklets and bracelets, and they'll wear them up the arm, right? And each one is like money. And instead of, if they're nomadic, right, they can't put it in a bank, so they'll buy jewelry and they'll wear their wealth, and then when they need something, they'll take it off and cash it in.
Oh,
So
wow. That's something that when you just said that where their wealth and then cash it in makes me think about hip hop culture and the gold medallions and jewels. But bringing it back around to the fabric and crowns, what you're talking about, Christina, directly relates to, and I think of the head that Nawili brought in part two with her, which she used to braid and wrap and bedazzle, right, with all these jewelry and beads, and thinking about what she said regarding how when doing hair, when braiding, when wrapping, it's a collective process. So if you want your hair beaded, we're in this space right now. We're doing this all together. We're getting this done. And so, hey, bead this string so that we can put this onto the hair so that we can adorn the person who is sitting here getting their hair done. So across cultures, you have this way of recognizing history, technique, spirit. So relating that to finery, because I also I think I've heard that word before, but I had to be reminded. So thank you for sharing that. And how Nawili utilizes that in the tradition of African hair braiding to adorn the individuals, and how she said just the sentiment of how good it felt, being of service and giving this, right, to the people, not holding on to this. And related to that wealth topic again, when she said that she was doing braids for $5 back in the day, like $5, 5 USD back in the day, the time that it takes to do the work, and looking at how we don't have to work within this sort of extractive capitalist framework, right? Because this is something that we share spiritually. And so I'm going to do this. Y'all, you can give me $5, but I am doing this to share this history, to be a holder of the history. I think is how she phrased it. You know, she's passing this ancestral technique on that originated from the motherland and keeping this going within the United States, within the African American tradition, right? And building that, and just maintaining our culture.
I mean, I can speak briefly to it. Mugisha could speak more. Um, but yes, it's this ceremonial thing. Of course, don't forget, like if you're part of a community, the mothers, the daughters, the sisters, the aunts, the grandmothers, the friends, the cousins, everybody would get together to do this in a in a traditional culture. And so part of the time would be done. It's part of, right? Like part of, you know what one person would get their hair done, and then they would finish, and then the next person, right? So it would be a give and take, and it would be something that brings everyone together. And often I think those were like hair braiding parties, and like, because, and it would also be done in preparation for a ceremony, for a healing, for rites of passage, for a saint's day, or a marriage, or a wedding, you know. So these are not, I mean, sometimes this hair braiding, I think, correct me again, Mugesha can speak better to this than I can, but I believe that some cultures kept that as a traditional wear every day, but of course sometimes they would change according to the occasion, right? Like,
Mhm.
and they would get some done for finery. The one that comes to mind, for me, that in, there's a dance of the Moorish people called the Gidra, and the women who dance, they create these fantastic crowns out of semi-precious stones and ivory figurines and silver, and it gets braided into a crown and then braids all the way down, and it has special talismans at the end. They have a special number they have to do it in. They have a special, um, their own, they can pick out their individual stones or their individual symbols, but then everything has to be finished in the same way. And then they have the dress, and then they get together and they dance, and their dance is a blessing to the community. It's for giving of barakah. And so that whole process of adornment with the henna on the feet and the henna on the hands, and then the braiding, it's all preparation for this ritual, or this time together with the community, where the women would then bless with barakah. But other communities, right? There's so many, and this is part of the sub-Saharan African community. But I know Mugisha also has familiarity with this. I mean, that's what I would say. And that process, like there's nothing in our culture now, like how, what you said, Janet, how much time it takes to do that. And what it does is it really marks, doesn't it? Like, I think she said, like, it probably takes 2 days, or like all day, one day, but that time is needed to mark a transition from one space to another, and to make it, and one imbues it with meaning, right, as one is doing it. And it is an offering. You're right. I mean, how can she I mean, the amount of money you would have to charge for something like that is going to be completely
Mhm.
unaffordable. I mean, it's not a thing, is it? And the intricacy and the beauty with which Nawili was imbuing her creation with. And then of course, you know, hair is so unique. Like no two people are alike, and like you have to, like, right, like hair has a mind of its own, so to speak. And
Yeah.
you know, you just like like you have to like be present with, I mean, and do a design that fits the person, because it's so, right, so it's so unique and so special and meaningful. So yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm taking up so much of the conversation,
It's
but
so good though. It's so good. I was thinking, Mujisha, I was thinking like when they mentioned Nawili charging $5 for hair, I was thinking about how you're making yoga accessible to communities, and how you're fostering community around yoga.
So it's quite uneasy, but what from the arts sector, what makes an artist stronger in advocating for the best life to other people because the moment you choose to be an artist, okay, let me rephrase. The moment you discover yourself and as an artist, you are following a path of advocacy. So you become the voice of the voiceless. You become the voice of the minority. And you become a person who airs, who talks, who speaks on behalf of other people. And just as a dancer would put emotions into a dance piece and they cease to exist, and you only see emotions on the dance floor or on the theater or in the theater on a dance floor, same. Um, when I become a yoga teacher, when I chose, or when it came to me, I had no choice but to find um, partnerships with people who can make it possible. And so these people have offered studios. This studio that I've shown you, I'm going to shock you. I don't pay even a single shilling for it.
Sorry, I had to,
What?
what?
You don't
What?
pay
Yeah,
anything.
nothing. So what I have to do is I have to show up on time and teach yoga and um, encourage other yoga teachers to come and share their practice, those who have gone to school and studied. And I make sure that I use the social media platforms to make sure that people get to know about the space and they can be there. So, well, what they do is they pay some money to be a part of the class. That's like $8 to be a part of a yoga class. This is a community class. They do not come with any yoga mat. If they come with any yoga mats, that's theirs. It's good, healthy. And we have props, blocks, straps, and they come and make sure that whatever they need for their practice to happen, they can be here. But make no mistake, if people feel like they cannot be a part of a class like this, a community class, they can go for a private class, which can be like in between $25 to $50. So if you try to compare in between the $8 somebody can pay for community class and the 25, the one that they pay for the private session, it's always a big difference. So we also have this states where we do not charge any yoga teacher who comes to be a part of the community. So if you come to the community and you say, I am a yoga teacher, I want to practice with you, all we need to see is your certification. And you join the community, you start practicing free of charge, unlimited. All you need to do is just show up. And when we assess your teaching skills, and then we can see whether we can give you a class or we create a schedule for you on the calendar so that you can have a day or a slot so that you can share your practice. Because we've seen many people who have gone to yoga schools. Christina can be bear witness, and they end up not teaching at all because some of us have different strengths. I created this community and people have been practicing and yoga teachers have joined the community, but many yoga teachers cannot. They can only be a part of a studio that is already established and share the practice. Or if nobody creates that opportunity for them, they will never share ever, ever at all. And so that's how many people have many teacher trainings, 200 hours, 100 hours. They love to share because we believe that if service is below you, then leadership is definitely above you. And they feel like they want to be a part of this service to the community, but there's no opportunity. And those people are many, and they end up not teaching at all. So what we do is we create that harmonious space where somebody can come through free, make it free, make we make it a non-judgmental space. We open space for everybody to come and practice. And so also there are these people who be like, I cannot afford to pay for the yoga classes, but I want to practice. So the conditions we give them, you have to show up for at least 3 classes a week to keep your free pass. If you violate that free pass without any reason, 3 attempts and you lose it. Because sometimes That's the commitment they can give. And the people who contribute the little money, the $8, is their commitment towards the practice. And well, this is how we're making things happen. So last 2 months, 3 months, I partnered with the Indian High Commission, and we introduced a yoga class. Do not laugh. People are paying. Let me see. Let me do the conversion and make sure that I give you the right amount of money
The
that
right
people are paying for
amounts
this
in
class.
USD.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes,
earlier we were asking
so
what the
that you.
temperature in Uganda was. We had to do some Celsius to Fahrenheit math there.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
I'm loving all of this though. Like yeah.
so they pay $13
Oh,
for a whole month.
Oh,
$13,
wow.
13 USDs, and they do.
Wow.
Yeah, and they have to. They attend 3 classes every week, and
Oh,
the studio of the Indian Eye Commission offers maths, and they just come through and practice 3 days a week. So that means 12 classes a month. So with this stable platform, we make sure that somebody can understand their bodies too. One, and two is they will learn the practice and start to dive in the benefits of the practice because it takes time. So some people they come expecting to benefit like in 1 month, 2 months, but we say no, no, no. We make it affordable so that you can give it a lot of grace time and be patient with your body. Well, because people do not understand. If I gain weight for 10 years, I do not expect to lose weight in 2 months. No, it doesn't work that way. Even when I provide the necessary conditions for the body to be in shape, that means there's discipline, there's awareness, there's mindfulness, and there's commitment to the practice. And this all counts. So even having to work with a mindset like this to change it, it becomes very hard. But we take it and we say, I teach them because it's important that they understand and they appreciate their bodies. Because if you love the body loves you back. Yeah, I don't know whether I have answered the question.
yeah. Yeah. What I love about this is especially being a teacher who's given many free classes, so many. It's there's nothing more disappointing than having a free class and then no one showing up to it who registered for it and you're like, ah. So I love this like, hey, we will make this accessible for you, but you got to commit. I love that for that reason. But also, yeah, in order being someone who's tried yoga and failed miserably at it, I feel like, yeah, this is not something you can just try a few times. Like you have to really commit to it to see any kind of impact, small impact, big impact. And especially I'm sure there's lots of people with very high goals when they start yoga. But I feel like getting that consistency and getting that commitment, you get enough of people to do that, now you really have the power to shift culture and shift mindsets, like you said. If you were trying to show yoga as a powerful tool that anyone can use in Uganda, in the world, right? Then shifting that mindset around it, shifting that culture that not you don't have to just be wealthy or rich to have access to yoga, and that like I said earlier, it can be an act of resistance too. I think that you need that one person who gets super into it and really committed and has an impact, and then they share it with another person like, this is what it did for me, now you need to do it, and now you need to do it, and it has this ripple effect, which was another common theme actually in our last episode with Nawili, is the ripple effects from this kind of community work. But yeah, that's one of the things I love about it.
Can I jump in and say, so it's interesting to hear Mugisha's process. It's a beautiful, beautiful. I mean, I'm so, my heart is so happy to hear that because it's something that I've wanted to do. And also, I think people, I've realized that my approach to dance has been very different. For me, it's always been it's been an inner practice. And then like yoga, like martial arts, there's the inner practice of dance and there's the out of practice of dance. And the two then have to come together. And it becomes your life, right? It's one path then. And but having this approach really is kind of, I guess it is a here we go. It's an act of resistance because in the modern performing arts world, it's performance, it's production, it's marketing, it's how many people can you get in the studio, it's how many people you can get in the audience, it's how much, who are your sponsors, how far is your reach, and and like they'll reject you if you're just this little bitty. It's like when you, even if you're a big name artist, they'll reject you when they don't like your message. But if suddenly the world is onto your name, suddenly they'll love you and they'll adopt you as a cultural treasure, right? So it's like you're really like an independent entity at like no, so you might as well make up your own rules, right? And so what is beautiful, what I found is that within our world, to build a community of women, and this goes across culture, building, so the dance forms that I do really resonate with women and of all ages and levels of ability across all backgrounds, across all cultures, across, and I find that even though it is a very culturally specific movement forms, um, it goes way beyond the classroom, and it's so in and of itself it's a counterculture. It builds networks and community and strength, and they call on each other and they have each other outside of class as well as inside of class. And I'm sure Mugisha is finding the same thing, that his students are finding like it's building a stronger community because you have this inner practice. And then on top of it, it's a very healthy practice. So you're bonding in a very healthy way, which creates really solid communities. And then to have the leadership of a studio like his, which has that greater vision, right? Like, so it's a very forward moving. And I mean, the challenge that I've had, and I'll just open it up to the floor, is like, then there's that, right? There it is, the having to survive and sustain oneself and to not let that sway one, right? Like in the midst of how does that happen? Well, it's a mystery. Like we just keep doing what we do because it's we can't do otherwise, right? Like that's just how we're wired. Anyway.
I love that. It's I always think of that. This is a really bad example, but I always think of that quote from Shakespeare in Love, where the producer's always like, "It's a mystery. It's a mystery. We just keep performing, and will the show go on? It's a mystery."
I think about what Nawili said about journey, what you said actually, Danny, because you were like, I don't want to use the word career. It's a journey, right? And when you are providing this service to the people, the universe will give you what you need. I've always been amazed at how Nawili moves through the world, like just giving and receiving so much because she's giving without thinking about it. She's giving because it is what she does. She is sustaining and surviving through that. She's thriving through that because she's not thinking about it in the way of, like Kristina, like you were saying, what's trending right now. Oh, you're good. Everybody likes you. Okay, now we're going to acknowledge your humanity. Now we're going to acknowledge what service you're giving. It's not about that. It's about how we utilize what we've been given to help each other, the earth, other beings. That's how we survive and thrive and sustain, right? And this is what we're all talking about in all that we do and all that Nawili shared. Her bottom line was, I am giving. Bottom line.
Yeah. I feel like being like I'm trying so hard to unlearn some of my capitalistic thinking of trade and equal trade and like I do this for this and transactional, right? This transactional mindset and trusting the universe that if I just keep giving, which I do, things will come back. But I this is where I feel like the podcast could potentially go down like a therapeutic rabbit hole because I'm not good at accepting things. There was a transitional point in my career, and I will say career, where I was like, I don't even want to apply to grants anymore. I don't even want to do crowdfunding campaigns anymore. Like, but I think I have to rethink that too. I've actually been rethinking that a lot lately.
Real
Yeah, I feel like this would be a good subject for another episode, actually, of just unpacking how do we give and how much do we give while protecting ourselves. Also, how do we accept too, for those of you
yeah.
like me who don't accept very well.
How do we think about it? And I'll say something that the Teaching Artists Institute says, like the phrase that we brought up in our pre-show. Culture is the new currency, right? That's what we say at TAI, right? Culture is the new currency. So if we, like you're saying, Danny, shift our mindset into understanding that culture, what we give to each other, how we learn, how we appreciate our differences, how we explore, is how we exchange, then we begin to gradually move away from the extractive nature of capitalism. That's what I'm telling myself on a constant basis, while knowing that I'm still within this framework where I have to pay bills, take care of my child, take care of household, take care of myself financially. Yet understanding that if I don't take care of my spirit, and if I don't do the work and be of service in the world as I am supposed to be, from what God, the universe, my ancestors, spiritual guides have given me, I'm not really doing what I'm supposed to do in this lifetime. That's how I'm thinking about it. And that's what Nawili has always shared with me in everything that she does. Because Kristina and Mugisha, as a reiteration, I've known Nawili for many, 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 many years. And she's taught me so much in all different mediums. And specifically when it comes to hair, the braiding, the feeling of just, ooh, let me poke my chest out a little bit, because man, I'm I'm beautiful. I feel beautiful. You are giving me this energy that makes me and helps me go out into the world and say, yeah, I'm going to wear my afro. I'm going to wear my cornrows. I'm going to wear my beads in my hair, because this is me. And I love me. We do have a question.
Um,
Oh, Mujisha, please. Yes.
Go ahead, Mujisha.
so in South Africa, there is a Zulu greeting, and this Zulu greeting, you say sawubona. If the people are many, you say sawubonani. And so sawubona means I see you. If the many, you really say I see you. I see you for who you are. So I do not need to do um, I would say, the Eastern way of living. They say try stepping in somebody's boots or shoes. In this tradition, they do not do that. Or rather, they respect people and their difference, how they are. And you need to respect that people are different. So it comes back to the yoga practice. And I say, we understand and respect this essence of bio-individuality. So in the Teaching Artists Institute, Thai, we say culture is the new currency. But the word has more weight than it actually sounds like. So Christina was talking about um, the methods of weaving and the importance of fabric in opening up your background too. your own name and culture and tribe. It's not easy. And now see how she brings this model of healing, and people have to pay money to appreciate this kind of healing or artistry that she's bringing. So in the process, she becomes a healing artist. And as she does the healing, so we say she's recharging herself, because as teachers, we learn more as we share, if you agree with me. And so, same, this is kind of a drawback to the hair braiding. So in our country, we have tribes, and in the tribes, every family has responsibilities, or every tribe has responsibilities. We have hunters. Well, national parks now are gazetted, so hunters don't hunt anymore. But yeah, we have people who braid. And those people who braid, any child you find in that family will be a braider, and they'll be taught to do that. Well, we have healers. Guess what? If you're a healer, it doesn't matter how you run away. Even if you become a teacher, you end up healing teachers, or you'll be a healing teacher. So there's no bypass, because life has chosen you that way. Um, However much you might try to deviate, your life, the course of life that your family has picked up for you, or that has been braided into your family, will get you, because it's already into the family fabric. You're already braided into that family that way. So you find that people who sculptors, who do sculptures, it's who they are. Like, this is a person who you just get, like, give a hammer and a chisel, and they'll just make stuff. And this is how we are in the continent. But now modern society has changed, that if you are grown, for example, in Vermont, and the other person is from the other, and then you're originally from a different area, you're going to give birth to kids. These kids will know nothing about the family tradition. That means the family tradition dies in that generation. That means that child will grow, and that skill will not be taken on. So I think that's why this conversation becomes a lot more important, because how teaching artists like us view the life that is happening and activism is not as how other people see it. For them, it's like, oh, people don't have what to do, and they just come on social media, or they come to wherever they come to the centers and talk about this. Well, my mother can tell me that, yo, they didn't tell you about it, and so it's been told you about you here. And so, well, it's kind of different for me as I see it, because when we talk about it, or also gets to feel like parents or parenting comes in the mix. How much are we doing as parents, as siblings, you know, in in healing the community and healing ourselves, or healing the younger generation? Because we say the young trees strengthen the forest. So as much as we see you for who you are, we also learn from it and be like, this is how we correct the mistakes of those who have come before us, or this is how we learn from the good things that people have done, who those who have come before us, our ancestors, our elders. Yeah, I don't know, but that's how I feel about it.
Thank you for that, Mugisha. The phrase you said, which means I see you, can you send that in the chat so I can put that phrase like in the chat on YouTube? Can you just share that with us? Um, and I know I don't want to butcher it.
Yeah.
I don't want to butcher it, but if you could just put it in the chat for us, and then I'm just going to share it in the chat on YouTube.
Yeah, we'll see how well YouTube also does with those subtitles. I might have to go back in there and do some editing, but I will say, this is gonna sound so bad, but I thought it was interesting that you said that, because I'm like, in the very first episode, Janet was quoting Avatar, and I was like, this is where that came came from. This is where that came from. I didn't even know. So this was, yeah, my white girl brain just went, oh.
Wait, hold on. Explain that a little bit further so people know who if they didn't watch.
In the first episode, we weren't talking about that moment of I see you, but in the Avatar, you were talking about with the trees, and you were making the motion with the tree. I can't remember what exactly we were talking about. We were talking about breathing with trees. But in the movie, they have that phrase where it translates to "I see you," where it's and just like he explained it, I'm like, this is where that came from. I didn't even know. So that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. We know how it works, how things
Yeah.
are always, exchanged.
Yeah.
And then we learn, oh, what is the origin of that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So
Great.
we have about 10 minutes left.
All
Do
right.
we want to ask that that other question?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So,
Do you want me to ask
Danny,
it? All
please,
right, I'm
please.
going to ask it. So we always do an outro question. We
Oh,
ask it to
wait,
all of our guests. Wait,
real quick,
no?
before the outro question, the other question that we were going to ask our guests about the surprise. Should we go into that or do we need to? Because we can skip it and we can go to the closing question.
Just like if there were moments that surprised them?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
oh, I thought you meant our surprise outro question, which is the question we always surprise our guests with. I guess, well, yeah, we can say real quick, like, were there any other moments in the last two episodes, particularly with the interview that we did with Nawili, that surprised either of you? Was there a moment you were like, oh, okay, like that made me think, or that made me question, like, aha?
Yeah, maybe like a lightning round of this, like real quick responses since we are, you know, in the under the 10-minute mark. So just real quick response, if any.
I guess I can just say really quickly, it was just beautiful to hear. It was like, oh, yay, another one. It's so nice. Like I felt like I wasn't, oh, it was so great to hear someone's story and their process and the way their life unfolded magically. And just like actually it's really beautiful to be a part of this podcast. I mean, I wouldn't have met Mugisha otherwise and known there's another soul on the other in the other hemisphere doing the work, and it's just so beautiful to hear about it and to reinforce that it is magical, that it does unfold, that if you are true, things work. It's beautiful to hear that and to be inspired by that. So thank you. That was, I mean, there's no one thing. It's just everything, right? Like from the way the her project with the trees started to unfold and resolve itself to her whole journey in starting on her path to her yoga, I mean, to everything, right? Like just surrendering, how reinforcing that, surrendering to the one, to that guidance that we all hear and yet don't always listen to, right? Like so it's a message to keep listening and to keep following and keep trusting.
I like that listening, like the way she listened to the trees. Yeah, that's good. Abundance, I think, is a great word to sum it up. Abundance. Yeah. Mugisha, any thoughts that you had?
Honestly, I didn't get a chance to view the other podcasts. Been trying to run through the International Yoga Day preparations, but I'll just reflect on this particular one. Um, Never had I ever met a weaver who is a dancer, and it kind of had me thinking, wow, the artistry is big, and honestly, the work you guys are doing is really great. Um, um, Talking about this, the real things, this is the art that really works, and hope some people out there view it the way I am viewing it. And honestly, I was a participant, both viewing and participating in the conversation. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right. Janet?
Well, something that Nawili said at the end, peace at least.
Yeah.
At, at first, I was just like, oh, oh, at least it's like, oh, we're taking away, like we don't have enough of something. But then I said,
Mm,
no, no,
mm,
no, no. Actually, it's just saying, hey, at minimum, let's have
mhm,
peace.
mhm,
Let's have
mhm,
peace within ourselves. Let's have peace amongst each other. Let's have peace in the world.
mhm,
Let's just have peace.
mhm, mhm. All right. So now it's time to go to the other surprise outro question. So we always ask this to all of our guests at the end of episodes. In fact, there was one study group where we weren't going to, and they got mad at us. We were like, okay, we will
Right?
thank you for listening to the podcast and knowing that we always ask this question at the end. We will from now on always ask this question at the end.
That
And
is
they're
so
like,
great. Yes, you do
yeah.
listen to the podcast, so you
Yeah.
know.
So we always ask our guests, and I'll let Janet, are you going to put the screen up? And I'll make the bloop, 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 bloop
Mm,
sounds.
I wasn't, but I
Okay.
can.
We don't have to if you don't want to. We usually have
I
a
mean,
little magical
I
image
can
that
do
goes with
it.
the question. Bloop, 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 bloop. Those are my sound effects to mix it up. So,
Okay,
Chris,
let me do that for you, Danny. Since
Chris.
since we called it. Let me go ahead. Let me share my screen so y'all can see this amazing work. Okay.
I did spend a long time making it. But
Yes, yes.
Kristina and Mugisha, tell us, please, in your utopia, there would be dot, dot, dot. So, Kristina, why
Christina.
don't you go first? Yeah. Which I know you can probably think of many things, but in one sentence, how about that? In one sentence, what would be in your utopia?
That everyone would come to find their that everyone would find that connection that speaks to their soul,
Mm,
that is the connection to their creator and to their source, and embrace it fully and live their dream
I love that.
and manifest their dream.
Hmm. Which goes very
Yes.
well with our unicorn image that Jana just brought up, my magical unicorn, the RFC unicorn mascot. So, Mugisha, tell us, in your utopia, there would be.
There will be everybody. Um, everybody would at least acknowledge that they are enough. That there's
Mm,
nothing else they need to look from outside. Everything they need is inside of them. There, we are all of us are a complete set.
mhm. I
We
love
enough.
that. I love that. This got deep, this series, this collection. Janet, any final thoughts before I close this out?
The unicorn is deep. Deep like the bottom. Deep like the bottom. It's a house song. It's a soulful house song. Yes, it did get deep. I mean, Mugisha Ali Allan, Kristina, I'm gonna say it right.
Katsuda?
Katsuda.
There it
Yes.
is.
Thank y'all. That's what I want to say. I just want to say thank y'all.
Thank
So,
you. Thank
you
you.
know,
Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing with us. And please feel free if you think of anything else, you're like, oh, I wish I had said this or I wish I had mentioned that. Like, you can always send us a video later and we can post it on our Instagram or something. Because I know there was a lot. There was a lot in these episodes, which there always is. There always is. But thank you all so much for coming today and spending your time with us and your wisdom. I would like to remind our listeners again that if you haven't watched the last two episodes of the Fabric and Crowns collection, make sure you go back and do that, especially the interview that we did with Nawili G. Watch it a couple of times, get it all. And then while you're there, if you haven't, make sure you press that subscribe button and like and share and like and share and like and share. Stay tuned for our next collection later later this summer. We will be announcing that shortly. And we'd like to also remind our listeners that this podcast is funded by the two of us, your two lovely lady artivist hosts, and your donations. So please help us keep this podcast going by making a donation through the PayPal link in the show notes below. And without further ado, thank you, everyone.
Peace, peace at least.
Peace at least. Oh, I love that.